thanks to all the speakers. In fact, they have highlighted very significant points in their speeches. But before I start my remarks, let me share a fact that we are celebrating 19th May 2021 at IPS as a very significant day, that as we have just completed our 42 years of existence. And I am glad that while Palestine, Kashmir, and Afghanistan are some of those issues which we have been discussing throughout these 42 years, we are starting this 43rd year with the subject of Palestine, which is very dear to us, and we always aspire that there are opportunities where we can contribute in this particular service to the humanity and service to the Muslims of our Palestinians. I think I should begin with the point that Dr. Ali raised about the aggression. And until now, I think until 2018, it's a long history that aggression was being defined, and there has not been consensus. But the good thing is that it has now been agreed by the ICC in 2018, and now we have a framework under which the whole issue of aggression can be discussed and can be implemented, particularly with reference to Israeli actions related to Palestine and Gaza. We all know that aggression was one of the 4 crimes listed in the Rome Statute when the treaty was adopted in 1998. And we also know that the completion of the definition provisions of jurisdiction was postponed for further negotiations, and it took 12 years that ICC member states adopted a definition and conditions of activation and jurisdiction for the crime of aggression, which were updated in 2017, and after necessary procedure, the resolution related to definition and jurisdictions was finally adopted and entered into force on July 17, 2018. The definition crime of aggression means the planning, preparation, initiation, or execution by a person in a position of effectively to exercise control over or to direct the political or military action of a state, of an act of aggression which by its character, gravity, and scale constitutes a manifest violation of the Charter of the United Nations. The act of aggression means, under this definition, the use of armed force by a state against the sovereignty, territorial integrity, or political independence of another state, or in any other manner inconsistent with the Charter of the United Nations. Now, these acts can include, among others, invasion, military occupation, and annexation by the use of force, blockade by the ports or coasts, etc. Now, the question is Israel a member of the ICC? No, Israel is not a member of ICC, but the ICC has ruled. It has a mandate to investigate the occupied territories and has accepted the Palestinians after they were granted non-member observer status at the UN. So what will then happen after this development of definition by the ICC? The investigations will proceed without Israel's involvement. If Israel blocks ICC investigations on the ground, witness testimonies could be taken in other countries or at The Hague in the Netherlands. The case in ICC is focused now, and there are 3 main areas related to this case. 1, the Israel-Gaza war of 2014. 2, violence along the Israel-Gaza border in 2018 amid Palestinian demonstrations backing the declared right of Palestinian refugees to return to their ancestral homes in what is now Israel. And third, Israeli settlements in the occupied territories. These are considered illegal under the international law, a point disputed by Israel. So these are the three things which are being discussed in the ICC. So keeping that in view, I believe that at least 6 major points should be kept before us while we are talking about the aggression. Aggression has taken place not since last 7 or more days, but actually since last over 7 decades, and it is continuing. My second point regarding aggression is that aggression not justified by defensive necessity, international authority, or consent of the state in which force is being used. This is the situation of Gaza where Israel is doing actions. The objectives are not confined, Israeli objectives are not confined to handle some immediate provocations, but the intention to annihilate a whole population. And my fourth point is with regard to aggression that Israel is not alone in its aggression. It has itself recognized 25 countries supporting it, including the US and UK. And there are other actors as well, particularly in international media, who are supporting Israel by distorting or manipulating the narratives. There are a number of international laws, conventions which are being violated, including illegal occupation, land annexation, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, collective punishment, and other human rights, as well as several UN resolutions. Now, one may talk for hours about the living conditions and the difficulties of life of the Palestinians when we are discussing the plight of them. First aspect of their difficulties, however, is the insult and loss of human dignity that the Palestinians, especially people of Gaza, have to face by the hands of the occupying Israel. And this is exactly where Palestinians are compelled to respond with whatever resources they can afford for their dignity and freedom. In fact, they have little to lose now, and they realize that their plight is dependent on the resistance they can offer. In fact, that has been their belief, and they are continuing with this belief. With this perspective, let's have a look at the situation in terms of, I would say, SWOT analysis. It is not an exhaustive list, but I would like to share 4 to 6 key points in every area. First, the strengths. I think as far as the strengths of the Palestinians and the Gaza people are concerned, first thing is that they have a well-recognized case. They have a case that has been recognized by the United Nations, and it is still on the UN agenda. The other strength is the Palestinians' resolve, who are the key party to the case. They have continued their struggle in spite of all odds for the last over 7 decades, and in all probability, they are ready to continue. The third strength is Arabs' population, as Mushahid Hussain Sayyid was saying, that there are 2.1 million Arabs living in the Israeli state. So that is certainly a very important strength. And in the current scenario, whatever political disturbances are there and instability is there, I think these Arab Parliament members have gained a role in which they can break or make the governments in Israel. There is a de jure status of a state organized by the United Nations, and then there is a dynamic diaspora community and international public support. And if we add the religious dimension, it connects 1.7 billion Muslims with the issue. So these are 5 strengths that I have highlighted. As far as the weaknesses are concerned, I think we have to admit that there are confusions within and without, and sometimes even conflict within Hamas versus Al-Fatah, as well as many important players in the Muslim world. There is a diminishing support in the Arab governments, as has been mentioned in our discussion earlier, and particularly those governments which are surrounding Israel, dearth of financial, technological, and military resources, and lack of capacity and tools to influence the global narrative. Now, as far as the opportunities are concerned, I would say global consensus of Muslim masses is one of the most important opportunity that we have as far as the Palestinian struggle is concerned. They support the Palestine to the extent that no one can go against the cause publicly. Availability of a platform like OIC, I know it has weaknesses, but certainly when we are looking at opportunities, there is room for improvement, and we can certainly exploit this platform. Changing global dynamics. There used to be a unipolar world immediately after Cold War, and that has started getting multipolar. Voices within Jews and in Israel are also present, and voices outside Israel also, among the non-Muslims, among the liberals, among the civil society all over the world. And Moshahid Hossain Saab rightly pointed out the statement of Bernie Sanders. Reports in the international media, concerns shown by human rights organizations, all this is going to be an opportunity to make use of it. Now, as far as the threats are concerned, of course, poor global governance, I would say, is the biggest threat, and the paradigm survival of the fittest on which this current global governance is based. We have to hit that. Israeli cloud, particularly in the US, UK, and other European establishments, and through them in the global institutions. Israel's influence over the international media in financial institutions, MNCs, and financial markets, hybrid war techniques, and the silence and rather unfriendly role of the rulers in the Islamic world. Now, this is a framework in which we have to think that what can be done. Of course, it requires another exercise, and we do not have time right now. I have several points, but in the interest of time, I'm not going into those details. I would like to conclude here with the statement that all of us have a role to play. So in what area we can play? There are certain areas, there is a lot of room in each and every area, whether it is diplomacy, whether it is media, whether it is research, and role of universities and think tanks, civil society organizations, social media is available. So all of us, and of course, we need to maintain whatever support base the Gaza brothers have. We need to maintain that support, and that requires a lot of input from the sympathizers from all over the world. So we need to make a personal agenda, a collective agenda, an institutional agenda to move forward and for the cause, and to finally achieve success in our journey, which may be long, but which is very bright, I would say. Thank you very much.